Hey, John Boy and Billy here, looking for that unique gift for somebody hard to buy for? Well, the Rusty Wallace Racing Experience is your ticket to drive fast and not get pulled over.
Go to racewithrusty.com today. Give the gift of experience and save 60% off.
Use promo code SAVE60, racewithrusty.com.
The following paid program does not necessarily reflect the views of this station, its staff, or iHeartMedia.
An important message from the Attorneys for Freedom law firm. No attorney-client relationship has been created, and any and all information mentioned in this show may not be constituted as attorney-client privilege. The information shared does not constitute binding legal advice, nor should it be utilized in a court of law. If you have further questions or require legal representation, contact an attorney today. Aloha, and a welcome to Law Talk Radio, brought to you by the Attorneys for Freedom law firm. When you or your loved one's freedom is on the line and you need an aggressive and experienced law firm to defend you, look no further than the Attorneys for Freedom law firm. We only offer straightforward, well-reasoned legal advice, and we always promise to represent our clients the way we would want to be represented ourselves. And now, enjoy this edition of Law Talk Radio, brought to you by the Attorneys for Freedom law firm, featuring attorney Marc J. Victor and your host, Rick Hamada, on News Radio 830 KHVH.
Hey everybody, welcome. It is 8:07 in the morning. News Radio 830 KHVH, wishing you a warmest of aloha, and thank you very much for choosing us. It is Law Talk, and presented by the Attorneys for Freedom. And in studio today, we have some good friends, but leading the charge, of course, is attorney Marc J. Victor. Brother Marc, it is good to see you.
Hey, Rick, it's awesome to see you. It's great to be in studio. It's wonderful to be back on the island. I wish I could stay forever. I love it here, but unfortunately, business calls. I'm back and forth and back and forth and back and forth. But right now, I'm enjoying the moment, and I'm heading to the beach after the show, so couldn't be happier about that.
What's top of the agenda for you, Attorneys for Freedom, here at home that brings you back to the islands?
Well, you know, I've got very serious cases, frankly, in both places. I was just in federal district court here, rocking house there and saying what I want to say and just trying to do a good job advocating for my clients on cases. And so really that controls most of my schedule. You know, these federal judges, they don't really care about my calendar. They dump a hearing here in Honolulu or there in Phoenix, and I got to show up at each place. So it's funny. I tell people back in Arizona, I got a tough job. I got to go to Honolulu now for a hearing. Nobody ever feels bad for me.
Yeah, not a lot of tears being shed.
No.
At all. We're starting the program off with attorney Marc J. Victor. And Marc, you have shared with us in the past, very recently, about your candidacy for U.S. Senate, great state of Arizona. And we've reviewed briefly your appearance in a three-way debate with a Republican and Democrat candidates, and you as a Libertarian candidate. I watched. You had mentioned before a little bit of short shrift. That is true. However, post-debate, oh my goodness.
Been a firestorm, my man. You know, I've come out really as the lone wolf guy, right? I mean, I said right in my opening statement, I don't kiss anybody's ring. I'm for freedom. I'm for peace. I'm for civility. You might have noticed I didn't attack anybody in that debate.
You started with "I'm live and let live."
Live and let live. Yeah,
so.
that's the truth. I mean, I speak the truth. I don't lie to anybody. I got integrity. If people don't like my positions, I respectfully speak to them about it. I'm open-minded. But it's been a firestorm since then. I got a 9-point bounce after that debate. I got buried in emails. Half of them were, "Hey, Marc, I love you. I'm voting for you. I'm excited. Thanks for doing what you're doing." The other half was, "Marc, I love you. I'm excited. Thanks for doing what you're doing. But, you know, heck, I'm throwing my vote away, voting for the Libertarian." And, you know, interesting, about half of those were because I want to get Masters elected, and the other half was because I want to get Kelly elected, which tells me I'm doing something right because I'm appealing and I'm aiming to the reasonable people. But we've got a lot of national attention. ABC News is going to do a big story on Hulu It's this George Stephanopoulos thing they're doing, and they did an interview already. It came out, lots of national press. Reason Magazine did a big story, so there's lots of attention going on right now, and that's what I like. We're shaking it up. We're trying to do something different. I'm under a little bit of fire, really, from both sides about, hey, Mark, you're going to split the vote, and you're going to put Mark Kelly in. And, maybe that's true. I don't know. It could be true. But on the other hand, while I think that Blake Masters, and he's the Republican, if people don't know, he may stop some legislation here or there, and he may get some passed here or there. But at the end of 6 years, nothing's going to change. I know that. Last time I ran, I got pressure to go easy so Jeff Flake would get elected, and I foolishly took that advice. And Jeff Flake did get elected, and he went to the Senate, and he did his 6 years, and then he left. And what changed? Nothing. And I'm ready for change. We need action. And, if I show well in this election, I'll have to sit back. And if I don't get elected, I'll evaluate where we're at. Maybe I'll run as a Republican next time. And if I don't have that, hey, wasted vote part of the argument, I think I'll win. Kirsten Sinema is a Democrat. She's in Arizona. She's up in 2 years. If I get the nomination, if I get the R next to my name, I think I'll win that race. And when I get there, I won't be any more effective at getting legislation through, right? I'm one vote. But I'll be on the couch at Fox News, and I'll be on the couch at CNN, and I'm going to say exactly the same thing I've been saying the whole time. Doesn't matter who's giving me money. Doesn't matter who I'm speaking to. I shoot straight on every single issue, and it's okay if people don't agree with me. That's fine. I'm a hardcore pro-freedom, pro-peace, and pro-civility guy, and that's what I'm going to bring. And you know what I'm finding out, Rick? People like that position. It's a breath of fresh air.
So is there a concern about the commingling of ideological and then political/legislative? Because specificity on particular issues, all the way from immigration, crime, national defense, etc., there will be caterwauls. If there's not in this issue, this is what my role will be to promote and propose this. Do you believe that exactly what you said? There's a voluminous desire for differentiation, but then at the end of the day, there has to be the practical aspects. You came under a bit of fire. You had a position and or at least opinion in regard to age of consent, and that created a lot of disdain among many people.
Yeah, most of them libertarians, by the way. But I cut a video on my website. In fact, I encourage people to go. It's liveandletliverevolution.com. That's my political website. People should go there. I cut a video in response to this. I was talking about the abortion question, and I've also written extensively about this. I cut videos about all these issues, by the way, even the things they didn't ask me about, Ukraine and China and the drug war and crime. Videos on my website about all these. And what I was saying is, look, reasonable minds disagree on this question of abortion. We got to get past it, right? And so in those areas where reasonable minds disagree, I think we should put them in the local jurisdictions and see how things play out. And I was giving an example about other types of questions, an age of consent. I didn't say anything about sex, right? There's also the age you can drink alcohol. There's the age you can enter into contracts. There's the age you can vote. All of this is areas where reasonable minds can disagree. And I was simply saying, by analogy, we should also decide those questions in the local jurisdictions. And well, then the internet trolls came out. Well, Mark is wanting to lower the age of consent for sex, abolish the age of consent for sex, which is all completely ridiculous. But, I've been under fire before. I'm not afraid. I cut a video, I explained my position. And for the people who actually watched my video and understand my position, I get a lot of follow-up emails. Some of them have integrity, and they said, Mark, look, when you first made that comment, I misunderstood. Then I watched your video. Makes a lot of sense. I'm going to support you. Look, it's hard to get complex positions out in 45 seconds. That's just it's not what I like doing. I don't enjoy politics. I'd rather sit down, have a real conversation with people. If we got to have a better attention span than a gnat if we're interested in solving real problems. But the good news is I got a website, liveandletliverevolution.com, and I can record a video. Also, for the people who want me to step down, I recorded a video on that as well. And I said, look, I'm happy to talk to Blake Masters. If all we got to do is he's got to come and he's got to talk to me. We got to sit down and like reasonable people. And I've said, look, I'll be open-minded. I'll be civilized. I'm not on the attack. I want him to explain to me why it's in the interest of freedom and peace for me to step down and endorse him. And if he can convince me of that, I'll step down and I'll endorse him. My only caveat for the discussion was I'm not a backroom kind of guy. I think it should be out in the open. People should hear the discussion we're having. I don't want any quiet deals, and I'm a man of principle. If I'm going to say it, I'll say it in front of everybody. So let's do that. And so far, and I know he knows about this because his campaign has contacted me, and I responded. I sent them that video back, and I said, let's sit down and have a conversation about it. So far, crickets.
We're talking with attorney Marc J. Victor and covering recent revelations regarding his candidacy and more, because thought-provoking and stimulating to the point of national attention. But with that national attention, you mentioned trolls. There's going to be an inordinate amount of people that will. People don't care. They don't care about context. They don't care about factual.
Some.
The trolls don't.
The trolls
they don't give a
They
rip.
don't care. But I'm not trying to talk to the trolls.
I know, but Mark, again, the perception in politics is reality. You mentioned it before. There's not enough discernment and enough knowledge because of the 45-second bite.
Yeah.
So what takes over is emotion.
Yep.
And the trolls are effective at utilizing and capitalizing on emotion.
Well, that's on us. Yesterday I was driving around in Honolulu, and I saw a gang of people holding signs that said, Josh Green for governor. That's all it said. And I thought to myself, how's this effective? Why does this work? I don't even want signs out there that say vote for Marc Victor for Senate. This is ridiculous.
It's a cultural thing.
We need to change what we're doing in politics.
I have to jump in. There, just as in Arizona, it is here in Hawaii. Both of your homes.
Yeah.
It is a cultural, iconic tradition. Whether or not analytically, substantively, etc., may not mean a hill of beans when it comes down to the vote.
Right.
But the presence. People here at home, we hang on to traditions because they're increasingly falling away. And the sign waving, I understand. I proposed to eliminate sign waving just based on safety because we had issues. There were sign wavers on the poly, on the blind turn. What are you doing out there?
Crazy.
So I'm just quarterling for the local folk. That's why
I hear you. I hear you, my brother. But this is on us. We got to do better than this. I remember as a little kid riding around and seeing a sign, "Vote for this guy," and I would think to myself, "Why would I vote for?" I mean, I don't know anything about this.
The white bumper stickers.
How is any of this effective? And this is really what we're talking about. The problem's not money in politics. I know there's money in politics, but the problem is us. That money buys signs. That money buys little short blurbs on commercials. Why is that effective? That shouldn't be effective. We have got to demand more. The good news is in today's world, you can go to the websites. Look, if you go to my political website, I have more than double the number of issues, and on each issue, probably 10 times the amount of information than the other two guys put together. You want to know what Marc Victor's about? Easy. LiveAndLetLiveRevolution.com. You want to know what the other two guys are about? Watch the debate. They could have just rerun their 30-second commercials. I still don't know what is at the root of the two people I'm running against. What's their philosophy? What are their principles? What are their values? I don't know. That's why I want to sit down and have a... This wasn't a debate.
But they're never going to sit down, Mark.
Well, that's on them. People need to decide.
It may be on them, but that is... Let me just back up for a second. Politics equals marketing. That's what this whole political landscape is about. It is successful marketing. Number of impressions, number of messages, what stands out. Be sure to tear down so you can build yourself up. It markets a product, and that's the reality of politics today.
I have nothing to do with it. I got nothing to do with that. Don't care. I said right in my opening statement, I do not kiss either. I don't kiss Trump's ring. I don't kiss Biden's ring.
No, I'm talking about the ring. I'm talking about the general public.
I'm doing my own thing here.
That's what the campaigns do,
Don't
and the
care.
majority of others.
Ain't what I'm doing.
That's it.
Ain't what I'm doing.
So are you going to win?
We'll see.
Is it desire to win?
I'll tell you how I'm going to.
Or is it a platform to advance live and let live and your fundamentals?
The only way I win, and here's the way I would win, if people understand what it is I'm saying, if I can get my message out there, if I can get it, even if I'm getting enough just interest, right? Because the trolls have said this or that, who's this Marc Victor guy?
Yeah.
My goal is if they go to the website and I can hook them past the attention span of the gnat, and they say, oh, I see what this guy's actually saying. He's different. He's trying to get us past these issues. He's trying to get us to freedom and peace. If there's enough people who understand my message, I will win. If there's not, I won't win. And then I'll sit back and I'll regroup. The goal here, even if I won, right, I'm not going to affect legislation. I'm going to be one vote in the Senate. What's the goal there? I'm speaking out to the people in the world. We need a thought revolution. We need to change our hearts and minds. Paul, you can't look to politicians for this change. They're going to put their thumb in the air and see what the people want. That's how change happens. I'm pushing a thought revolution about politics. That's the only way I win, and I will not sacrifice my principles, my values, any of my positions for the sake of winning. I'll assure you of that.
So Tulsi Gabbard, our own Tulsi, recently released.
I saw.
And et cetera, okay. And her follow-up was still inviting common sense Democrats to leave the party. So that's a profound message. She made her name nationally, obviously, with her run for president, and specifically in an exchange with then candidate Kamala Harris, which went viral and elevated her in the campaign. There. What's happening now, though, is that with her own channel and with the exposure, guest hosting on Fox and other outlets, she has now built an incredibly successful, over millions of views. And that's the point, the reach. And then controlling exactly what you want to share, not emboldened or encumbered with anything else.
Love it.
Is that the objective of Marc J. Victor?
Yes. I've said from day one, my goal is to win hearts and minds, whether I'm doing it as a run for Senate, whether I'm doing it as pushing a global peace movement, whether I'm doing it by owning and running a law firm that's called Attorneys for Freedom, don't care. What money is less important to me than freedom and peace. And it is to everybody listening to this show, too. If you think about it, right? Who cares about money if you don't have freedom? Freedom is there's nothing more important than freedom. There are things equal, right? Your health is important. You can have freedom if you don't have your health. That doesn't get you anywhere either. But nothing's more important than freedom. And I'm bringing that position. I'm bringing integrity. I'm not lying to anybody about anything. Ask me any question you want. If I don't know, I'll say, I don't know.
Are the Dallas Cowboys the worst football team in the NFL?
Not this year, for damn sure. Because
I thought you were going to be truthful and honest and integrity.
My Patriots are contenders for this year. I don't know, man. But, it's still early in the season, and my buddy John's always excited at this part of the season. Well, let's reboot that conversation when we get to,
We'll get to week 16, and then we'll revisit
There you
that.
go, my brother.
Yeah.
There you go.
Listen, we've already gone. I have to get this break in sometime. But I have to ask you this. Politics, the judiciary, separation of powers, of course, the basic foundation, which needs to be upheld, but the blending of all three is troublesome.
Huge.
What is your opinion on the politicalization of the Supreme Court and decisions that are infected and affected by that same political structure?
What a great question. Thanks so much for asking. Not enough people are talking about this. I think one of the most dangerous things going on right now is this threat to pack the court. This is just a disaster for our country. The court's never been packed. We've had threats before. FDR threatened to pack the court. He didn't succeed in packing the court, but he did succeed, and I've talked about this on the show, he did succeed in really ruining how the Supreme Court acts, and that's what's brought us the big government. That's what got us the New Deal and all the things that followed. This is devastating. Look, if you don't like what the Supreme Court did here, and by the way, both of these decisions, the abortion decision, the one we'll talk about today, the Bruin decision, both of these have, whether you like them or not, they're both rooted in reasonable legal jurisdiction and thinking and all of that. These aren't off-the-cuff, crazy decisions. There were disagreements among reasonable jurists about the Constitution. The Constitution isn't clear in many areas. Like, take the Fourth Amendment from what's a reasonable search or seizure. It doesn't tell us. You got to fill that in, right? And so people disagree on this stuff. I could have, if I was on the court, come out differently on either of those decisions and made a reasonable legal argument. I mean, maybe not the Second Amendment. That case seems pretty clear, right? I mean, keeping bear arms has got to mean more than just keeping them in your home. But on the abortion case, you could have come out completely different on that case in either direction. By, as we've talked about on this show, there's the Ninth Amendment. It supposedly protects all these unenumerated rights. You can get privacy right there. You could get abortion. You could get health care there. So I'm glad they didn't go there. But you can get anything you want out of our Constitution. The question is, what do you want? And our founders, while not perfect, they came up with a reasonable concept here, right? The president picks the person, the Senate confirms the person, and then they're up for life. So because we want to chop off this notion that they're beholden. And in some sense, we've seen that, right? The Supreme Court just turned down Donald Trump's appeal in an unrelated case. And 3 of the justices that were put up there by Donald Trump went against him. The same was true in all of the election cases as well. So look, there is some value in having jurists who are not beholden to being reelected or reappointed. It's not perfect. And again, there is no perfect way we can't expect a perfect system. But our founders put a lot of time into this notion of having, the bicameral legislature and different, Senate much smaller, the House completely different, having the president with the Electoral College, and then an off the political beaten path. Although they're political appointees, we should be clear about that, right? They still got to get through the Senate, but now they're sort of off the chain because they're appointed for life. It's not perfect.
It's not perfect, but it affects the lives of Americans, and that's why the awareness level should be up. Give an example, I hate the word, politicalization. The assumptions made that it is rote, simply an ideological expression by the president. But you said it's right. You have to go through Senate confirmation. We can go back to Sandra Day O'Connor, who assumedly under Reagan was going to be a sycophant for Ronald Reagan. Absolutely not. Even recently was
Arizona, by the way.
Arizona.
Just want to get that in there.
Justice Kennedy, previous.
Yeah. Yes, another one.
Assumed to be
right.
on the left.
Yes.
But no, he was actually the deal maker or breaker because he was not predictable.
Wasn't Kennedy appointed from a Republican? Did Reagan appoint?
I don't recall.
I think Kennedy was expected to be a conservative and turned out. And same with Roberts. You could say the same thing with Roberts. I was just about to mention Roberts and even Kavanaugh to a certain degree. So there is the dichotomy that is idealistic. However, it's interesting when you take a look at the affiliations of each when it comes to the world of business, of big business. And you'll find more times than not on, correct me if I'm wrong, on fiduciary decisions, lawsuits, etc., that's where you find more of an ideological expression than you do in the social issue. Yeah, this really comes down to how we treat property rights and economic rights. When you talk about businesses, you're in the box that we call property and economic rights. And, if you said in a nutshell, Mark, what's wrong with the court? The answer back is the court does not protect property rights anymore. And anything can be characterized as a property right. I mean, if you let me control all of the property rights, you will find out very quickly I control everything. So by this is the change that we got as a result of FDR's court packing threat, which was the court stopped protecting property rights. This is the reason why when you walk downtown in Honolulu and it's a gigantic mess because you got regulations that are torturing businesses and you got empty buildings and you got people without housing and you got regulations that are strangling the economy here. There's really no help from the court on all of this economic and property rights legislation. The only thing is the whatever limitations the people in the legislature put on it. As we know here in Hawaii, there's virtually none. That's why our economy is a disaster here.
We are going to delve into more because that was just straight. We didn't even take a break.
No, we don't need a break. No.
And so, I'm sorry.
I wish you could.
Were
the
these
listeners,
headphones on?
I wish the listeners could have seen your face right there.
What is that? That's like saying, Marc J. Victor, you can't talk for more than 5 minutes. What?
The hardest.
What? You're kidding me.
You understand how hard this debate was, Mark? You got 45 seconds. Are you kidding me?
2A is next.
You can't wait.
And we're going to get together with good friends in studio, including Jonathan Harris, who will lead us off when we return. Thoughts and invitations for attorneys on retainer. In the meantime, short break It is already 8:30. Thank you for joining us. Law Talk, brought to you by the Attorneys for Freedom, resumes after this.
Law Talk Radio will return after these messages.
This is attorney Marc J. Victor with the Attorneys for Freedom law firm. Our law firm is well known for zealously representing people charged with serious crimes. But did you know we also represent people in both personal injury and civil rights matters? If you've been seriously injured in an accident or as a result of a civil rights violation, we'd be happy to discuss your case with you. No charge for the meeting and no fee unless we recover money damages for you. Located in Bishop Square or online at attorneysforfreedom.com.
Hi, folks. Rick Hamada here. You know, I tell you all the time, the law touches your life every single day, whether you like it or not. It's not a question of if, it is a question of when you may need legal representation, legal advice, your own attorney. It can be stratospherically expensive. However, the Attorneys for Freedom, Attorneys on Retainer program could be the answer for you. For a small initiation, small monthly fee, you can get all the benefits of representation from the Attorneys for Freedom law firm via the Attorneys on Retainer program. And let me tell you this, I signed up. I am a member of AOR because I see not only the value, however, I want to have the confidence that I have the Attorneys for Freedom in my corner. You can too. Log on to Attorneys for Freedom, click on the red Attorneys on Retainer tab, and you, my friends, could have legal representation.
Frustrated with the constant bickering between the Republicans and the Democrats? Are you concerned about the ever-deepening divide in our country between groups of people who can't even seem to talk to each other anymore? Well, there's a new political movement growing throughout the world right now. The new Live and Let Live global peace movement, and it's attracting reasonable people who recognize that competent adults should be in charge of their lives. We are inspiring people to be good humans. See liveandletlive.org for details and become part of the solution.
This week's edition of Strange Crimes is brought to you by the Attorneys for Freedom law firm. Legal issues are a part of life, and lawyers are expensive. With the Attorneys for Freedom's new Attorneys on Retainer program, you can have a trusted law firm on retainer for only $25 a month. Get the peace of mind you deserve. Visit online at attorneysforfreedom.com. On this week's edition of Strange Crimes, we have a story of a man who was arrested for burglary minutes after being bailed out of jail. 32-year-old Michael Casey Lewis was sent to Pinellas County Jail in Florida on drunk driving charges for rear-ending another vehicle. Officers say Lewis showed multiple signs of impairment, but he told them he was at a concert the night before and that he was just tired. Later that day, he posted $500 bail and was released from jail, but not for long. Upon being released, Lewis broke into 3 different vehicles that were parked in the jail parking lot. Deputies say they caught Lewis breaking into the cars and arrested him on 3 new charges of auto burglary. Lewis was later released on a $15,000 bond. And that's this week's edition of Strange Crimes.
Welcome back to Law Talk Radio, brought to you by the Attorneys for Freedom law firm.
Welcome back, 8:33 in the morning on this Aloha Saturday. Thank you very much for choosing us and being a part of Law Talk, brought to you by the Attorneys for Freedom. Attorney Marc J. Victor in studio with us, good friends, including Jonathan Harris. Jonathan, want to wish you a very good morning as well.
Aloha, Brother Rick. Aloha, my friend. Thank you for having us as always. It's great to be alive.
Oh, well, there we go. We'll start there, and all the rest of the story is going to be nothing but positive.
Absolutely.
Here we go.
Thank you, brother. It's always an honor to be here with you, Rick, and have Mark on island. And Raymond Craig is in the studio today. We're going to be speaking with him shortly. AOR, Attorneys on Retainer program. It's a great program, as you can attest to yourself, Rick. It's always, in today's world we live in today, legal issues are everywhere. Legal pitfalls are everywhere. So it's always good to be able to have an attorney in your back pocket and not having to thump tons and tons of money. We put you in a position to where you can have discounted rates with the Attorney on Retainer program. You can have access for a low, reasonable monthly rate. And the sign-up fee that we've put in place right now, it's $100 to sign up, but we've discounted that for the island to $75 just to sign up, and we can get you on family plans. to give you that full comprehensive coverage that one would need to have candid and private conversations with great attorneys, to be able to go over any legal issues you have with free consultations. For a low membership fee that's usually $25 a month, it's been reduced down to $19.95 there again for island rates. We're just looking to make sure that people on this island get a taste of what freedom and having good, competent attorneys bring to the table when it's dealing with any type of legal issues. So Attorney on Retainer program gives you that access. Once again, for free consultations, give me a call. My direct dial, Rick, is 808-278-6669.
You had a wonderful presence recently at the Blaisdell. And what came to fruition from that, the feedback that you received, and folks that were interested in becoming part of AOR?
Great question. I always love the first day of the gun showdown at Blaisdell because what happens is we have law talk, and people walk in and they see our big tent there, and they come running to the table wanting to give me a hug, high five, aloha. It's great. It's always a great feeling. People, it seems like they're taking on to us, and they're understanding what we're about, and we're about freedom. And the biggest topic, and Ray and Mark will get into that a little later, is the Second Amendment issues with regulations. I don't understand what's so hard about it. Competent adults should be able to not just own guns, but to be able to carry those firearms outside the home. So we got a lot of that, and we had attorneys there taking questions and answers. Okay, and it was great. It was a great opportunity to, once again, always be out there with the people. That's the type of firm we are. We like to have candid and open conversations with the people.
Thank you for the update, and we'll check in to remind folks that AOR is absolutely an essential part of your dossier. Huh?
Fancy, man, fancy.
Wasn't that good?
I love that.
Speaking French at 9 in the morning. I love it.
And go Cowboys.
I'm sorry, I have to turn this mic
Yeah,
off. I'm sorry. Did you hear that?
No, it was so
I think the air
static.
conditioner is going out. I didn't hear that. Attorney Marc J. Victor, introductions, please.
Yeah, so honored to have a repeat guest. We've had Raymond Craig on before. He's a retired HPD officer, one of the good guys, right? I mean, I hate it when people lump all police into one category. He's one of the good guys. He's retired from HPD, and he owns a company called Smart Training. And last time he was here, we talked about stun guns. Stun guns. Remember, we were so excited. Oh, my God, the people of Hawaii get to carry stun guns. Well, now we get to act like big boys and girls and talk about real guns, and that's what we're going to talk about here today. And as you know, we got this big issue. Ray and I were talking about it before the show. What on earth are going to be the hoops you're going to have to jump through to, oh, my God, exercise your right as a competent, free, peaceful adult to carry a firearm outside your home for defense of self and others? So I want to welcome Ray to the studio, man. Thanks for coming back, brother.
Welcome. Thank you. Good morning.
Raymond, go ahead and bring your microphone up a little bit higher, and that will help us hear you even better because we have a lot to talk about, without a doubt. Let's just start the current situation regarding Second Amendment status here in Hawaii. If you'd like to go county by county of what the process is now.
So the Honolulu Police Department, they took verbal statements last week, and as of yet, they haven't come out with their requirements on the outer islands. They have already issued. I know Maui and Big Island have issued. Maui, I think there are 9 or 11 people have received their concealed carry permits. Mm-hmm. The issue with that, though, is from what I'm understanding, talking to people from Maui, the requirements haven't been set out, made public. Mm-hmm. So they said you have to go through this course and achieve a certain score, but they won't tell you what the score is, kind of thing. So even that, it hasn't come all the way out yet. We're waiting.
Mm-hmm. So I'm going to open the phone lines for folks that are listening. 2A, issues, questions. Raymond's going to be able to help us comprehend, understand exactly where we are and where we should be, as opposed to perhaps what is being proposed. Let's take Oahu City and County with Chief Joe and the public hearing that was undertaken. Were you familiar with the feedback from that meeting, and consequently what Chief Joe and HPD, what they are pushing as far as requirements?
I wasn't there at the meeting. I was actually off island. I was in Washington, D.C., attending a active shooter conference. And so I wasn't even here for that.
How about feedback? Any?
Everything that I got was everyone is in a holding pattern. They're waiting. We want to know what the requirements are going to be. Everything was pretty positive, but that was as far as we've gotten so far.
I recall, because Chief Joe comes on the program, I mean, there were some interesting requirements. Having to attend a mandatory 4-hour verbal lecture, if you will, mandatory, and then a whole slate of requirements in order to have a permit issued, including mental health data, yes. And if you've ever been accused of in domestic violence, accused, not even if you were involved in it, that could be a deal breaker. If you've had a DUI within a period of time, that could be a deal breaker. And then with the mayor, his submission to the city council to bolster those requirements and codified in statute to say you cannot carry a firearm in a place of business or a nonprofit agency unless you have authorization from the store owner, management, or organization. My goodness.
Then the whole point is why?
So legally, I mean, can this be done, Mark? It's Supreme Court said, and now we have this.
Well, people have to understand how the law develops, right? This is why when we have common law, right? People like, the common law. This develops really, we can say our law comes from English common law, but the truth is English common law comes from Roman law. And so the law has been evolving for not just centuries, but really millennia. And so the way things work is the Supreme Court generally speaks at, think the 30,000-foot level. Okay, you got a right to carry your firearm outside. It's going to be subject to reasonable restrictions. They give a few things out there, right? There's traditional sensitive places. There's some mental health. There are going to be restrictions on who can buy and sell and what those are. And then they say, thank you very much. And then what happens is now we get back down to the ground level where the chief is going to put out regulations. And take Maui, for example. We're not going to tell you what the regulations are. Well, this is all well and good while they're handing out permits. But eventually they're going to say, no permit for you. Well, nothing's going to happen with that until that person gives a call to an attorney, maybe us, maybe the attorney. I would love that call. Hey, Mark, I was denied. Well, why were you denied? I don't know. They didn't tell me. What were the restrictions? So I'm going to make a call over there and say, man, what are the restrictions? Well, we're not going to tell you. Or they will tell me. Then we're going to bring a lawsuit, right? And then the court's going to rule. And then that winds its way through the appellate courts, and then maybe it gets to the Supreme Court. And so by the time it gets to the Supreme Court, the court looks at it and says, okay, here's what the Ninth Circuit is saying. Here's what the First Circuit is saying. Here's what the Third Circuit is saying. And then they make a decision. So there's some wisdom in letting the law evolve like that so we don't knee-jerk all over the place. So that's sort of the 30,000 view of how these things evolve. Now, backing it up for a moment, the court made some comments I think we can glean from especially the concurrence in the Bruin case about what would be reasonable and what would be unreasonable. So here's what they're going to be looking for. Are these requirements sort of untethered to what we care about, right? To sort of first, historical basis, and maybe second, are they reasonably related to regulations that are sort of calculated to get us to things that make sense? Or are these just... is this being used as a ruse by people who just don't like guns to set up? Because we could do that, right? We could say, look, the class is going to be, a 3-year class. It's going to cost you $10,000. You got to re-up every 6 months. I mean, they could make it so hard that nobody could get a firearm. But I think people should understand the court did not say that there's no requirements here. They said permits are fine, regulations are fine, sensitive places, they named some. There were some traditional sensitive places, courthouses, schools, things like that. So there's not going to be much judicial will to say those things are off the table. But they let an awful lot on the table. But some of the things I'm hearing that we're talking about, and they were very clear in the case, the entire city is not a sensitive zone, right? And it's not a sensitive place. So it's clear to me lots of these purported regulations, once we find out what they all are going to be struck down by the courts, right? So hopefully the lower courts will do their job and we don't have to keep fighting up the chain for years and years.
Yeah, but it's inevitable because in every single regulation or requirement could be a challenge on the individual requirement that will put this in court again.
Yeah.
So, Raymond, what are we looking at as far as timeline, or is there anything that people that desire this permit that can be done now, or is it just in this inevitable holding pattern?
We're in a holding pattern.
And that's it.
That's it right now.
Happy to bring lawsuits. You can think about this rule as the Lawyer Full Employment Act, because we're going to have to be fighting all of these battles. I hope what people do is band together, right? Because this shouldn't have to be a financial burden for any one person. Let's get a group of people together. They can call us. We always give discounts to people who are fighting for freedom at our firm. And let's get in and shake it up. And we're going to have to fight for our rights. This is the beginning, not the end.
8:45 in the morning. I turn it back over to Raymond. Raymond, what else should we know in the realm of 2A and or the pursuit of obtaining licenses? What else would you like to share with us today?
The biggest thing is, well, we're letting the process go. And I get people are very, they want it now. And I get that. But there is a process. So we're just going to let the process go. That's what I'm telling people. Be patient. The other thing is, outside of that is education. I'm always going to come back to education. And it doesn't have to be me. I get that. But I'm going to tell everybody, whether this thing goes through, whatever the requirements are, get yourself educated and find the best person that you can afford. Everyone's going to have different limitations on that. So find the best that you can afford and make that continual also. Don't just one and done and I know everything. You don't. Go out there and continually try to get better.
Yeah, let me expand on that for a moment here, because there are really two things are here. Number one, what do I got to do to check the box to get my permit to carry outside? That's great. But number two, maybe is even more important. You got to know what the heck you're doing with a firearm. I give a talk sometimes, the two fastest ways to ruin your life. One of those ways is pull out a firearm when you're not legally allowed to do so. And that's what people should be focusing on, right? It's not just get the training to get the permit. Get the training so you know when you can pull it out and when you can't pull it out and how you should act. Because really, you don't want to be in the position where you're charged with a criminal offense. If you're not a member of Attorneys on Retainer, it's going to be very expensive to defend. These are very hard cases to defend. You're looking at mandatory minimums. You're going to be probably pressured into taking a plea. The prosecutors know how this stuff works, and it's going to be a lot of stress and aggravation. Skip all that. Get educated, and don't be a statistic for the other side, right? Because every bad use of a firearm, illegal use of a firearm, is going to be published in a stat somewhere for the Pelosi, Schumer crowd to say, look at what happens when you let people have guns. Instead, be one of the good guys or women with firearms. And this all turns on education. There's quite a bit to know about what's reasonable in the gun area.
Got to take a break. And the only thing I'll say is 99% of the attention is on legal, law-abiding, responsible men and women. There is a dearth of conversation about the illegal possession by criminals, thugs, gangs, etc. It's like it's all off to the side. Just when we talk about crime, the focus is on the police. What did the cops do? Did they do this right? What did the body cam say? This. And you leave the victims of a crime third in line in consideration and discussion. I'm getting tense
and you
over
should,
this.
And especially in these places where they're ignoring real crimes, things like shoplifting, things like criminal damage, things like trespass. These are real crimes. And so I think people sometimes misunderstand, what we're saying in sort of in the freedom world. We got to be clear about what a crime is and what a crime isn't. But if people commit crimes, and there's a very small percentage of people who commit a very large percentage of crimes, we need to deal with these people. And if they need to go to prison, let's do something with them there. Let's rehab them because they're probably coming out someday. We need a much more effective criminal justice system.
849, Law Talk, Attorneys for Freedom.
Law Talk Radio will return after these messages.
This is attorney Marc J. Victor with the Attorneys for Freedom Law Firm. Being charged with a crime is a serious, possibly life-changing matter. I've been zealously representing people charged with crimes for over 25 years. My experience includes several first-degree murder trials, many high-profile cases, and thousands of serious felonies of all types in both state and federal courts. We also handle appeals. If you're serious about fighting it, I'd be honored to represent you. Located in Bishop Square or online at attorneysforfreedom.com.
Are you frustrated with the constant bickering between the Republicans and the Democrats? Are you concerned about the ever-deepening divide in our country between groups of people who can't even seem to talk to each other anymore? Well, there's a new political movement growing throughout the world right now, the new Live and Let Live global peace movement, and it's attracting reasonable people who recognize that competent adults should be in charge of their own lives. We are inspiring people to be good humans. See liveandletlive.org for details and become part of the solution.
Hi, folks. Rick Hamada here. You know, I tell you all the time, the law touches your life every single day, whether you like it or not. It's not a question of if, it is a question of when you may need legal representation, legal advice, your own attorney. It can be stratospherically expensive. However, the Attorneys for Freedom, Attorneys on Retainer program could be the answer for you. For a small initiation, small monthly fee, you can get all the benefits of representation from the Attorneys for Freedom law firm via the Attorneys on Retainer program. And let me tell you this, I signed up. I am a member of AOR because I see not only the value, however, I want to have the confidence that I have the Attorneys for Freedom in my corner. You can too. Log on to Attorneys for Freedom, click on the red Attorneys on Retainer tab, and you, my friends, could have legal representation today.
Welcome back to Law Talk Radio, brought to you by the Attorneys for Freedom Law Firm.
Welcome back indeed. We have a few minutes remaining. I'll turn it over to Mark for the reintro to Ray, who is in studio with us, and the call to action.
Yeah, you know, Ray and I were just talking. Ray's like me. He loves what he does. He's into his craft. He's not a business guy. So I said, look, man, tell people how to get a hold of you. Tell them what you got to offer them. Tell them what you're up to. Because I know there's people listening to the show saying, you know what? I need to get some training here. I don't want to be an idiot with a firearm. How do we get that done?
Go to smarttraininghi.com with one T. So SMARTRAININGHI.com. There's a contact me so you can send an email and whatnot. I'm waiting on the requirements before I start putting out any kind of packages. So right now you're only going to see stuff on there on taser stuff. But if you contact me, send an email, we can come up with a package. And as soon as we get the requirements, we'll make sure that we check those blocks, and then we're going to go above and beyond.
Yeah, that's what I was just going to say. I really hope you do, hey, here's what you need to know, right? Like in the insurance area. Here's the minimum required insurance. But here's the reason you should have underinsured coverage and some more coverage and this and that. Let's turn people out who are good, responsible, competent gun owners, right? Because we want to look good here at the end of the day. You know, there's a crowd just waiting to see how many bad uses of guns we have. And we should bring them on this show, by the way. Every time we get a good self-defense issue on this show where somebody pulled out a firearm and they stopped the bad guy, we should get that person on the show and make a big deal out of it, because we got a forum here, and let's publicize this stuff. What are your thoughts on classes and courses and what we can do sitting here in this studio with Brother Rick to bring attention on things that the rest of the press isn't bringing attention to?
I can tell you right now, I'm just going to go off topic real fast, is I've actually had this happen where I ended up being at a place, and luckily I was off duty. I was carrying my firearm because I'm allowed to, and I was able to stop something. Upon interviewing the bad guy, it was going to be a murder-suicide. And it just so happened I was there. What happens if I wasn't? Kind of thing. And
someone's going to die.
Right.
That's what's going to happen. You can't expect the police to be everywhere when you just can't. It's not reasonable.
That was luck. And, you know, I'm going to take luck any day of the week. But at the same time, we got to train to be good.
Yep.
And the training is going to be the thing. You got to get trained. Find the best that you can afford and make it continual. and get out there.
Yeah, and I teach people about the gravity of pulling out your firearm. These guys, and I tell people, if you're walking around with a firearm and you're excited about pulling that thing out, you can't wait for an opportunity, you shouldn't be carrying a firearm. It should be boring, boring, boring. You're probably never going to have to pull it out. And you really got to think, and I do a segment where I talk to people, what is it that should be in your head in that 1 or 2 seconds you're thinking, is this the time to pull it out? We need more time to get into that. And this is what we'll talk about in your courses.
Yes, exactly. That's exactly what we're going to be talking about, because the whole thing is it should be work, honestly. If I'm excited that I'm going to pull this thing out, wrong. That's not it. It's a conscious decision to get involved. Can I positively affect the outcome of this situation right now? That's what we're thinking. And then can I do what I need to do here? And once that's done, now there's going to be ramifications after that. What is going to be my response after the fact?
Yeah, it's a big deal. People need to make sure they conduct themselves properly after the shoot as well. What you say, what you do, making sure that, police are going to be coming. They don't know who the good guy is and who the bad guy is. You got to make sure you make yourself safe. So, we do a lot of this stuff in Arizona. We're talking about working together to putting, if we're going to be involved, I want it to be a first-class operation. So people come in, we need to be committed to excellence, make sure they get the very best training, they get their questions answered, we give them scenarios.
Yep.
There's a lot of gray area in self-defense questions. It's like, is this a good one? Is this not a good one? And I'm going to wind up saying it's all going to depend on what a randomly selected group of people from that community think is reasonable. That's what it turns on, folks. Whether you go to prison for a long time or walk out of the court and buy your criminal defense attorney a nice dinner somewhere turns on whether these people think what you did is reasonable. So we got to talk about what's reasonable.
Yeah, I'm wanting to collaborate with them, and we're going to be working close together.
Telephone number, website, contact information, right?
It will be smarttraininghi.com with 1 T. The phone number, please leave a message. Don't hang up. Leave a message. It's going to be 808-892-1007.
Excellent. Before we take off, Jonathan Harris, quick reminder, AOR, please.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Ray. It's always good to see you, brother. Yes, training is important. Be a responsible gun owner, folks. Please, responsibility is the key. Once again, Attorneys on Retainer program is always here to help you, folks. Just give us a call. My direct dial, once again, is 808-278-6669. Be happy to talk to you. As always, once again, it was glad seeing everybody out at all the past events at the gun show at the Second Amendment. Please keep us going, guys. Once again, call us, 808-278-6669. We will also be putting something together for Ray to put out to all his past and future trainees, and so we're looking forward to collaborating with him as well. So once again, Attorney on Retainer program, 808-278-6669. Mahalo.
Thank you very much, Brother Mark. Take us through about a minute or so remaining to wrap things up.
I'm in the middle of the political jungle right now, man. I'm in there with a sword, and I'm fighting my best and trying to, keep my positions 100% accurate. We're acting with integrity, and it's a jungle. And so, look, reach out, check out what we're up to right now. It's kind of an interesting moment. Live and Let Live Revolution.com. Feel free to reach out if you think I got something wrong. Happy to hear from you. If you just want to say, hey, give me an attaboy, those are really appreciated, too. I mean, there's no shortage of trolls out there that are happy to say all kinds of awful things. But I'm being undeterred. I'm acting like I acted when I was in the Marine Corps. And look, I understand why good people don't want to step up and get in the midst of this. There's a lot of personal aggravation, and so, but we got to do it. If you're out there and you're listening, step up, fight the right fight, take the right principles, don't compromise your values. Peace, everybody.
And there we have it. Thank you very much, everybody in studio, and more importantly, too, for our friends who dial it in. It is Law Talk with the Attorneys for Freedom, featuring Attorney Marc J. Victor and more. We return next week at this time, and we will see you then. Stand by. Stand for Hawaii. Coming up next.
Mahalo for joining us on Law Talk Radio, brought to you by the Attorneys for Freedom Law Firm. If you have further questions or require representation for a legal matter, please visit us at attorneysforfreedom.com.
Hey, John Boy and Billy here, looking for that unique gift for somebody hard to buy for? Well, the Rusty Wallace Racing Experience is your ticket to drive fast and not get pulled over.
Go to racewithrusty.com today. Give the gift of experience and save 60% off.
Use promo code SAVE60, racewithrusty.com.